Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Eric Walters, Managing Partner at Summit Hill Wealth Management. I appreciate you joining us today. I know that Zoom is kind of letting everyone just kind of log in. So as everyone's logging in, I'll just kind of introduce our topic today. We want to talk about two laws that are affecting Colorado employers. And I've got two amazing experts here to help us walk us through. The first is Brandon Mckenzie. He's with Human Interest. And the second is Kevin Bakewell, who is with Beyond. And so we will touch on two mandates. Again, one is the Colorado Secure Savings Program. The second is the Colorado Healthy Families and Workplaces Act. And our experts are going to explain what they are, what are the requirements to comply, and then offer some ideas if you are a business owner or an advisor to business owners, how you can comply. You know, what are your options without overwhelming yourself or your staff? So we're planning on just 30 minutes here, kind of information packed, so we'll get started. So Brandon, I want to talk about the Colorado Secure Savings Program first with you, but let me just introduce people who don't already know you or Human Interest. Brandon is the Partner Account Manager for Human Interest. If you're not familiar with Human Interest, they're a leading retirement benefits provider for small and medium-sized businesses. Brandon has over 15 years of experience in the employee benefits industry, and he's an expert in employer benefits and sponsored plan and compliance matters. So that's Brandon. Thank you for joining us. So first, we talk about the Colorado Secure Savings Program. Can you just explain what the new mandate is?
Yes, well, thank you, Eric, for having me on your webinar. I appreciate it. And yes, I'm just sharing my screen real quick. Sometimes I like to have a little visual. So yes, so the Colorado Secure Savings Program, kind of what this means to an employer. And at the end of the day, what this is going to entail, well, first, we're going to quickly say that Colorado is not the only state. There are several states, as you can see on the screen, that this mandate has already gone to effect about 5 states, and it's coming for about another 46 states. So not only here in Colorado, but this mandate is going to be eventually in every state. With that being said, what the Colorado Secure Savings Program is if you have 5 or more employees, and if you've been in business for at least 2 years, you have to offer some type of retirement solution to your employees. Now, your employees don't have to take it, but you have to at least offer to them. And the parameters of an employee is part-time or full-time, 18 years or older, and they've been employed for 180 days. And also for employers, it's saying if you are a Colorado-based employer, whether if you're a nonprofit or religious organization, you have to comply with offering some type of retirement solution to your employees. And with the Colorado Secure Savings Program, they have an option. If you don't choose to go down an individual path, like partnering with Eric or working with a financial institution, Colorado Secure Savings Program is going to allow you to then sign up through basically a government-ran retirement plan, the Simpay IRA. And how that's going to work is if an employer chooses to go down that path, they have to actually physically go onto the state's website and enroll into it. And then all their employees are going to be automatically enrolled. And it's going to be automatically default at 5% of your employees if you choose to go down the Colorado Secure Savings Program. And if you do not comply by January of 2023. So you have to have something in place by January 2023. And if you don't, starting February of 2024, they're going to start penalizing employers if you don't have some type of retirement plan in place, or if you're not signed up through the Colorado Secure Savings Program. And you can see on my screen is the penalties of $100 per employee up to $5,000 per calendar year for that if you don't comply with the mandate for it. And so I'm definitely, I have a couple more slides I could talk about, but I want to stop. Eric, did you have any questions that you want me to go into more detail first?
Yeah, first, could you clarify? I know the question about who is, covered by this, I think is one that people ask. So could you just clarify who's affected by the mandate? Which Colorado employees need to pay attention and make sure they comply?
Great question. And the ones that need to comply is that if you have 5 or more employees and you've been in business for at least 2 years, and it doesn't matter if they're part-time or full-time, of course, over the age 18, you have to comply with some type of, have some type of retirement solution in place, whether it's a 401k, a simple or you sign up through the government plan.
Okay, got it. So 5 or more employees in business for at least 2 years, you need to pay attention to this and comply. And then you mentioned that there are penalties for non-compliance. One of the questions that came in before the program started was, is there a report or some way that employers can respond to the state and affirm they're in compliance?
That's a great question. And what the state's going to do to be key compliance, they're going to run what they call 5,500 reports, which is going to show if anybody has some type of retirement solution in place now that they're in compliance because they're on that report. And of course, if your company does not on that report, then that's when they're going to send out letters to you. They're going to start physically mailing letters the middle of January of this coming year of 2023 for that. And then you're saying you need to take action. And I misspoke too. You have to have some type of retirement plan in place by January of 2024, and penalties will start coming February of 2024. Sorry, I mixed those the year. So they will start sending out letters to every employer starting in the middle of January that it does not have, that's not in that 5,500 report that's showing that they have some type of retirement solution in place, saying that you need to take action, whether you sign up for a plan on your own or sign up through the government. And if you don't, by then February of 2024, you will start receiving penalties in February.
Got it. So the plan is in effect January 1st, 2023. It sounds like the intention of the law was to give employers maybe the year to implement it. And then starting in early 2024, penalties would be assessed.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So, we understand who's subject to this. We understand there's penalties, how the government will kind of track this. What are some options for employers to be in compliance? You've already mentioned them, but if you could kind of be explicit, here are some of the options.
Absolutely. Well, and real quick, I'm going to explain a little bit more about the program and how it's going to be a little bit cumbersome if an employer chooses to go down through the state program. It's one of those things that, again, it is the Colorado Secure Program is a Roth IRA. It's going to be post-tax, something I joke about, but of course the government wants their money, so it's going to be post-tax. And if you use any other type of retirement option, you can do pre-tax. Of course, that's going to save you money on your FICA and less taxes you have to pay the government. And then in the max, you can put into this plan of $6,000 a year. And then as you can see, the government actually hasn't even figured out these two aspects for it. And with that being said, you have to do a lot of manual process yourself if an employer is choosing to go down with the state program. And some of those things are that if there's any changes in those contributions, you have to manually upload those into the state program. If you have employees that have chose to opt out, again, you're going to have to manually upload that. And then every pay cycle, you're going to have to file and upload into the program online about the contributions. And then, of course, you're also going to have to debit your company's accounts. And then again, if there's new hires or terminations, you're going to have to manually enter those in for that program. And so I'm not necessarily saying there's cons, but I'm just letting you know these are the processes you're going to have to take if you choose to go down the retirement, the Colorado Secure Savings program. And with that, and then answer to your question, Eric, some of the other options that you can go down. And again, you just have to be able to offer some type of retirement solution to be compliant. You don't have to match your employees. You just have to prove that you offered to them, and they don't have to take it. And so with that being said, there's a lot more flexibilities if you go down the option of a 401k, for an example. When you have a 401k, you have a lot more flexibility with those standpoints where you can set eligibility periods for a year or however up to a year, but you can set eligibility periods longer than that. You can also set vesting periods where if you do choose to match, which by the way, you're not required to match, but if you do want to match your employees, you can again set kind of vesting periods for that where if you do match them and up to 5 years, you can do anything less than 5 years, you can basically collect that money back if an employee leaves your place of employment up to 5 years if you do choose to match them. So there's just a lot more flexibility going down a 401k path. With that, and as well as too is that with a 401k, for example, with human interest, we have automatic syncs with payroll companies. So there's no manual process involved. It's a turnkey solution instead of going through the government program where you're going to have to manually upload every pay cycle, change every new hires, where then partnering with someone like Human Interest or maybe other 401k providers that are integrated with payroll companies that makes that more of a turnkey solution.
Got it. So just to summarize, the Colorado program still has some features that are not determined in terms of integration or fees. We don't know, right, what it'll be. There's a lot of manual processes that a business owner or their staff would have to engage in. And then from a business owner standpoint, if they think, okay, I can offer a retirement plan, that's one good option. But from an owner standpoint, are there options within a 401k where they can try to save additional money for themselves as the owner? Is that a potential design feature that they should also be aware of?
Absolutely. That is actually one of the biggest value adds for a business owner, is that they can use the safe harbor and tax shelter. Of course, you're the financial expert. I want to say that 68,000, but they can tax shelter from the government, put into your 401k and tax shelter that money, so that's not going to be taxed on. You're not going to be able to do that through the Colorado Secure Savings Program, but you will be able to do that offering through a 401k plan. And as well as if companies do not have a 401k plan, the government actually has a Secure Act where you can actually get tax credit to offset the cost for a retirement plan for the first 3 years. You can't use that tax credit if you sign up through the government Secure Savings Program as well. So another something that's in it for the business owner too.
That's great. That's great. So, Brandon, you did an amazing job going over the Colorado Secure Savings Program. I'd just invite all of our guests to be thinking about questions. I'm going to switch over and start asking Kevin a few questions, but we'll leave time for questions for both Brandon and Kevin. But Brandon, awesome job. Thank you. And to all of our guests, just know that we will pause for additional questions. So I want to keep us moving here to stay on the half an hour. Kevin, thank you for making time. I know you're really busy, but you're going to talk about another law that is becoming a mandate, the Colorado Healthy Families and Workplaces Act. But before we dig in, I just want to introduce Kevin. Kevin Bakewell is the National Sales Director for Payroll and HCM for Beyond. Beyond provides tools and solutions to small and medium-sized businesses, including employee management, point of sale, payment processing, business capital, and I know so many other things. Kevin has over 15 years in the payroll human capital management industry and has assisted over 10,000 businesses, that's amazing, with their payroll, HR, and compliance needs, and also considered to be a leading expert in the areas of time, attendance, and compliance matters. So Kevin is a real deal, that much experience, that's amazing. So Kevin, could you give us an overview of what the new paid sick leave requirements are under the Colorado Healthy Families and Workplaces Act?
Gladly. And everyone, thank you for joining. Eric, thank you for hosting and coordinating. So this particular paid sick leave act is sponsored or was created by the Colorado Healthy Families and Workplaces Act, and it's endorsed and enforced highly by the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. What is it? Great question. Eric, would you mind posting the first slide?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So there are new PTO accrual policies that were effective January 1st of 2022. And later on, I'll kind of dive into that, the dates and the qualifications. But basically, any type of mental or physical injury, illness, or health condition that prevents work has to be granted PTO. Any type of vaccinations, diagnosis, care, any such conditions, you automatically have to be granted. The business has to automatically grant PTO to the employee. Any type of suffering domestic violence, sexual abuse, or criminal harassment with no questions asked have to be offered PTO. Moreover, any type of immediate family that suffers from an illness, COVID, whatnot, has to be granted PTO as well. Under those circumstances, you're allowed to, the business owner is allowed to ask nicely for proof that Jimmy, the employee, has to travel to Boston to care for his ailing mother. With regard to the domestic violence, sexual abuse, and so on and so forth, request for PTO, it is a no questions asked, immediately granted policy. So that is a basic overview of what the PTO policy is at this moment.
And that's a great overview. And so you say it here, but it seems like all businesses with one employee or more.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that?
Interesting. So effective January 1st, 2022, it is every business in the state of Colorado that has one employee or more has to grant paid time off from day one, from the first hour. There's no waiting period. Okay.
Wow.
And the accrual rate is basically 1 hour of paid leave for every 30 hours worked, up to 48 hours per year. So that's the minimum, right? You can grant more than 48 hours, but the bare minimum is 1 hour for every 30 hours worked to 48 hours. Okay. For these purposes. Interestingly enough, there is an original back in January 1st, 2021. This policy was in effect, but it required businesses that had 15 employees or more had to grant this PTO. But now, and going forward, indefinitely, it's from day one, every business, one employee, except if that one employee is a blood relative of the owner, okay, or the owner themselves, has to grant PTO.
Okay. So we could, I guess if it's just a solopreneur and it's just them, then there's no records they need to provide, or if they're working with a blood relative, but pretty much everybody else needs to comply.
Which equates to about 99% of the businesses in the state of Colorado.
Exactly. Okay. So the logical question, if we have, multiple employees and they're working these hours, how does a business keep track of all the paid time off data? I mean, this is a lot of hours to track. And I assume it also includes not only how many have accrued, but how many are used, right?
And requested.
Yeah.
And requested.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. There's nothing set in stone. However, the Department of Labor and Employment has gone on record saying, you know what? We strongly suggest that the businesses in some way, shape, or form track all this stuff. Okay. And not just on a notebook piece of paper, but somewhere that the employee has access to view at all times. And they track a request and an acceptance, how many days taken, how many days accrued, how many days left to be taken.
Wow.
The employee really needs to have access to that data 24/7.
Yeah, so it's not enough just for an owner to maintain their own, spreadsheet or Google sheet. They need to have something that's accessible, and they also need to track or show that they've received a request and what happened with it, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Now, do the hours that accrue, it says up to 48 hours per year, do those roll over and compound year over year?
They compound so yes, they do. They roll over as long as it depends on what the policy is by the business in terms of what they accrue the following year. But yes, they're allowed to roll over.
Okay.
Not to exceed at the minimum 48 hours.
Wow. And what if an employee has accrued these hours and then separates from service?
This is a great question.
Does the employer need to pay this benefit out to them?
Not for this particular plan, no.
Okay. But so while someone's employed, they have to keep track of it, but they don't have to speed, spend up capital.
Yes, that's my understanding, yes.
Okay. So you've done a great job just talking about, what it is, who's affected, basically everybody in Colorado. And then the idea that you've got to track it and make it available for employees to view as well. What are some options that business owners can consider in terms of how to make this, how to comply and how to make this, user friendly for themselves, but also for the employees?
Good question. So the most basic way would be to have an Excel spreadsheet where you track everything on an Excel spreadsheet and make it available to the employees. Okay. Again, that is a very basic way of doing it because it's just not very efficient. There are time and attendance tracking modules or solutions online that are free or very inexpensive. But and some of them work very well. But I think the best idea would be to, through a payroll provider, let them track and do all the arithmetic for you. And by way of their mobile app or web-based solution, it's very easy for the employee to log in and just view it, either online or in their paycheck or anywhere else.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Kevin, I'd love to give the floor to you. Just talk a little bit about how, a provider like Beyond could solve this problem. If you could elaborate, just, let's say an employer maybe is doing their own payroll, but as staff, kind of gets higher and higher, maybe they don't want to do that. How could Beyond help?
Good question. So a payroll provider like Beyond or others indemnify themselves. Hopefully they indemnify themselves. What I mean by that is if there's any mistake in anything, PTO related time off, anything, tracking, it's on them. It's on the payroll company to resolve and rectify and remedy the situation. Whereas if the employer is doing it themselves on their own, or through a payroll provider that does not indemnify, you're kind of out of luck. The employee is many times out of luck unless they can convince the employer that they're wrong, which leads me to the whole accuracy thing, right? When you have a payroll provider like Beyond or others, their systems are tried and true that there won't be any mistakes made in terms of tracking, accrual, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my experience, of course, businesses that are starting often trying to be efficient, do it themselves. But at a certain point, outsourcing payroll in particular can free up staff time and, take care of, these mandates. And then Brandon, as you mentioned, a payroll integration with a retirement plan provider, where that retirement plan provider will handle all the details, really, can help business owners really, take care of multiple issues, with some technology and good partners. I mean, Brandon, you want to talk about just how, human interest can not only help, deal with this mandate, but also provide a benefit that's valuable to the owner and employees.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we integrate with over 300 payroll companies out there. So we make it as a turnkey solution for that and making everything automated for you for that solution. So there is no manual uploads and processes involved with that when you do have a 401k with human interest. And so again, we're just making that process easy. At the end of the day, if things are easy, people are gonna go about that. And that is something that we really try to excel at. Something we kind of say at Human Interest, we're the easy button for a 401k because of all of our integrations and because that we're very cost efficient. And then again, we also kind of provide that education to employers about the mandate and let them know all their options that they can choose from.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna pivot to just opening up the floor. We've got about 5 minutes left. So for all of our guests here, if you'd like to, kind of type in a question, if you'd like to, type in a comment on the bottom of the Zoom is just a little button that you can hit. While people are typing that in, I realized, Kevin, I forgot to ask a question is, are there kind of defined penalties for employers that don't comply, maybe don't maintain records or don't offer PTO? What happens?
Yeah, good question. People are still holding that one pretty close to the vest, as it turns out, and I think it will depend on the situation. I've heard numbers thrown out that it's tens of thousands of dollars and whatnot. I think it all depends on the situation. If I may jump on your coattail, having things automated with the 401k and the PTO, it just makes it very, very simple. It's just a few clicks of the button, and don't do it yourself, folks. Hire a professional like Mr. Brandon Mckenzie or Mr. Kevin Bakewell or someone of your choosing, and let them help you craft and design things for you.
Yeah. And our specialty as a financial advisory firm is working with business owners. And it's one thing that I think consistently helps owners is to find good partners. Of course, fees are important, but don't subject yourself to a real problem, right? If there's an audit, if there's an infraction, that's a headache nobody wants. Exactly. All right. So we've got one question from Brenda. She says, we have a vacation time policy. Would the paid sick leave be in addition to that?
Yeah, fantastic question. 9 times out of 10, if you have something in place, you should be just fine. Okay. The PTO policy that the state requires you to have is like a very basic, consider like a major medical health policy, right? You'll be covered. It's likely you're covered. If having said that, if you'd like to email it to me, I'd be more than happy to take 4 minutes of my time and and review it, but it's very likely if you have something in place, you should be good to go. Great question.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Brenda. Any other questions from our guest? We would love to hear them. And while we're waiting, I'd love to ask each of you, what do you think are kind of the main objections that an owner might have? And, Brandon, either, putting in an owner retirement plan, or Kevin, hiring a payroll company if they're not working with one. What are their objections, and how do you address that? So, Brandon, I'll flip that to you first. What do you hear is people saying, I don't know about creating my own retirement plan?
That's a great question. And I would say the biggest objective that we get is they think it's too cumbersome. They think it's too much of a process to add in a 401k to their company, or they think it's going to be too expensive. And that is something here at Human Interest, we do make it extremely easy for you. And so we take away that cumbersome process. And we really are, like I said, the easy button turnkey solution for providing a 401k. And of course, I also want to make sure I'm also giving kudos back to you, is that when you're partnering with someone like Eric, is that he's going to help kind of walk you through those steps. And at the end of the day, Human Interest, we're the back end, we're the 401k provider, but then you have Eric to be the one who's going to help you walk you through those processes. And he's going to be the one who's going to be on the front facing to those business owners, or to the clients, to have to explain them, and also kind of providing education to those employees too of kind of why a 401k.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Kevin, what about you? If someone's not working with a payroll provider, what do they say? Nah, I don't know. And how do you respond?
Nice plug, by the way, Brandon, for Eric. The two pushbacks I receive are, number one, I want there to be a waiting period before I offer PTO. My comment back is, well, gosh, if somebody comes to you and says, I have COVID, or I have the flu, or whatever it may be, wouldn't you want them to take the time off rather than come into the office or whatnot and get everyone else sick, right? It's kind of common sense to me. Number two, second one is with a business that may only have 2 or 3 employees, they may think that offering time off, that means that everyone is going to head for the hills at the quickest opportunity to take vacation, which is not very accurate.
Yeah, and I think, just the opportunity to customize the retirement plan. And then also, I think, companies like Beyond do such a good job to customize the services. So it's not one size fit all. There are different, levels of service. There are different kind of levels of tools that different businesses need. I just think it really behooves a business owner or their advisors to look into it. We did get a question just about email, and we are typing in emails in the chat right now. So Kevin, I know we were corresponding on your personal email. So we shared that, but I'm sure you prefer your work email. So we included the work email and then Brandon's email as well. I encourage you to reach out to both of them. And as you can see, they're donating their time just to educate business owners and their advisors. So if you just say, hey, I just have a few more questions, what's available? What do we really have to do? What about our situation? I know both of these panelists would love to chat. We're coming up towards the end of our time. Brenda, thank you for your question. If there's anybody else who has a question, we would love to hear it. So we'll just give another second before we wrap up.
Brandon, I do have a favor. I included a link to the Department of Labor in one of the slides. Would it be possible to copy and paste that link into the chat?
That is a great, while we are waiting, let me see that. Yeah.
So the link that Eric is inputting into the chat is from the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, and they do a very shockingly, a very good job of explaining the PTO policies and so on and so forth.
There we go. Just
That's
got
it.
in there. And just to echo what Kevin said, that is the Colorado Department of Labor's website. And I'll say, looked at it, and they actually do an excellent job. Kudos to them. And so many things, they actually do a great job. But yeah. Great. So we have recorded this. If you are thinking, hey, this is great content, I would love, my friends, I'd love my employees, I'd love my head of a, kind of payroll to see this, just reach out. I'll type my emails in there as well. You can reach out. We will share a link. And then also, if you're an advisor to business owners, I saw on a number of our attendees, you work with business owners, and this could be a value add. We'd be happy to share a recording and of course, reach out to, different providers here to get more information. But Brandon and Kevin, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. It's fantastic. It's great to see you guys. It's been great to collaborate on this, and we will share a recording, with all the attendees and with you guys as well.
Awesome. Thank you,
thank
Eric.
you.
Brandon, good to
And
see
thank
you.
everybody.
Everyone, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.